is like clogging up and you just want to go for them.
Ugh. All
Like,
right,
bro,
we're
just let me.
live. Here we
You're
are.
live.
Ladies and gentlemen, what's up? You know who it is. It's your boy, Mystic Mark, sponsored by The Hit Kit, the #1 way for you to keep your smokables safe and sound. That's right, you got your lighter in your Hit Kit. Boom. Smoke it. Boom. Pop it open. You hide it all in there, nice and safe. Illuminati confirmed. Sponsored
Illuminati
by
confirmed.
the Hit Kit, hitkit.us. Then the graphic will go. So here we are. You know who I am. Juan, introduce yourself, please, my esteemed co-host.
Juan from the Juan podcast. I think after how many episodes? Well, 20 on the public feed, right? About 20-ish. And probably like
19.
30 on the Patreon.
Mm-hmm.
Give or take. I think people know who I am, bro. I think they can find me. They know where to find me.
I thought you were going to say after 50 shows, that was your worst intro yet.
That too. That as well.
Well, Chris isn't here yet, which is a bummer. We schedule these things. We want to go live. We want to keep up, be professionals for you YouTube people. Hence the got to get my mustache straightened out here. We want to be professional. Chris is at some Portland drag show or something right now, so he'll be home soon. We don't know exactly where he is, but he's going to join us very shortly. And our guest today, if you notice the title of today's episode, is a man who is a fellow resident of Florida. Juan is also from Florida. And I'm excited to talk to this guy, Dr. Narco Longo. Is that his real name? That sounds like a fake name, Juan.
It's a fake name, bro.
So I think we're like 17 for 19 fake names. Only 2 guests on this show have ever used their real names. That's amazing. And
Which 2 guests are those?
Well, one of the
Michael
sketchiest, Ryan Burns. I think that's his real name. And
No, I don't think so.
that's not his real name?
I don't think that's his real name, bro.
You don't think Burns is that doesn't sound like a fake last name.
No, Burns is, I think that was like a UFO family or something like that. The Burns, I think they've been associated with UFOs or the Skinwalker or something of that nature, which is what he's all about.
No, I think that's his real name. And then
That's his real name?
Michael Juan, yes, that's Mike's real name, but everyone else has had a fake name pretty much.
Yeah, sketchy AF, but that's part of the show. And I think that the sketchier the guest, the better, but I don't want to offend anybody when they come on. You know what I mean? Like, I know you guys like to push their buttons and stuff like that, but I don't want to disrespect anybody on air. I think the closest we've had was that one guy who almost jumped out on us.
Yeah, but Nathan Lee is a very unique individual, and that's his real name too. So there we go. There's a third real name. But yeah, Nathan Lee. He's a unique individual. It might have been a little touchy because he was warmed up and comfortable with my sense of humor, but he wasn't quite familiar with you two. So yeah, that was a close call. It's been a fun show. It sounds like we're doing some kind of like wrap up, like the show's gonna be over. I mean, we're just getting started here, Juan. This is episode 20. Hopefully one day we'll have an episode 100. I'm almost at episode 300 for my show. You're almost at episode 200 for the One-on-One podcast. How far away from episode 200 are you for the One-on-One pod?
Yeah, how do I sound? Somebody said I sound muffled in the chat. Do I sound okay to you?
Maybe our volume is low. I don't know. I think I sound fine.
Yeah, I'm on I've gotten up to episode 123, recorded 124. So I still got a bit of a ways to go to get to 200. That's because I only release 1 episode a week. You guys are pumping out 2-3 episodes a week, bro. I don't know how you guys do it.
Who, me?
Yeah, you and some other people. Test. Can you guys hear me? Am I too far away from my mic? I haven't done anything new.
You sound fine. Now they all say you sound better and louder.
and I didn't do anything. Let me turn it up just a
What's
little bit. I don't want
up,
to be too loud.
Bob Harding, Chris, Redondo Rocket, Militant Funk? I don't know where the hell you are, Militant Funk. Are you in like Thailand or something? Jeez. Steve Wildman, Raphael, Awkwardly Awesome, and Edwards, and Tom B. What's up, y'all? Yeah, dude. So we've been doing this show for quite a while now. We're almost going to be a year. It was about a year ago that we even met.
Yeah, I was looking at some timestamps the other day. I think it was some dates. I was looking back at some old episodes on the like my folders on my file. I almost have a terabyte worth of YouTube of podcasting stuff on my OneDrive, so I got to start cleaning some of that out. But yeah, almost a year, bro. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Talking about lizard people.
Dude, time flies when you're having fun. This is one of the funnest shows I've ever done consistently. I've done fun podcasts, but you two are fun co-hosts. You bring out my genuine sense of humor, you know, because with guests, you know how it is. You invite these people on your show, you don't know what they're going to be like. Some guests are completely strange. Some are very normal. Some become friends like you and I. But yeah, it's been cool to do that. I imagine now that you're doing a show with our guest who's going to be joining us today, it's probably cool to have more local podcast friends. Would you say that's been the case? Like, I don't know how close this guy is. Florida's a pretty big state, but it must be cool to like do a show with someone who can relate, you know, more than like, because Chris and I, we could relate pretty good because we both have lived in Connecticut for some time. But you down there in Florida, you got like those Juke Squad type Florida bros. That's what I think of when I look at this guy's haircut. I don't know anything about him, but first impression is he's like a Juke Squad Florida prankster.
No, he's a definitely a hippie, and I have a few podcasting friends now that are in the state. We have Project Cheney. She is in Vero Beach. We have Paranoid American. He's in my city. We have Narco Longo. He's in South Florida. Then I know some guys from the Palm Wave podcast over in Tampa. We're going to be doing something soon too. And yeah, dude, I like it. I wish that I could do more live podcasts, like in person, but obviously with it's a lot easier once you can just jump on, go live or record. Yeah, I mean, you know, you talk to people from all over the world.
You've done a live podcast in person with this guy, right? So this is going to be one of many shows you've done with our guest, Dr. Narco Longo. Folks listening can go over to his channel, Old World Florida, like, subscribe, hit that bell. If you haven't already, do the same for this channel and Juan's channel while you're at it. Chris, take it or leave it. He's not here yet, so he doesn't get a plug. Shout out to Rebecca. Shout out to Trash Boo, Anne, Grant. Things we should know asks, have we ever heard of Parlangois? Parlangois. It's been in stories for decades here in South Central LA. I'm going to guess that that's either a gang or a cult. What do you think, Juan? Try to take a guess. Do you think that's an Asian street gang, Parlangois, or do you think it's a cult?
I'm going to say cult. Okay. Are we right? Can you look it up, bro?
I'm looking it up right now. Let's see.
South Central LA or Louisiana? Isn't LA Louisiana as well?
Oh, yeah. Oh. It's not a gang, it's not a cult, it's a swamp creature, dude. You're right, that is Louisiana. South Central Louisiana. Interesting. Yeah, I saw that and I thought LA, but you're right, that's Louisiana. Wow, okay. So the Parlangois is allegedly a reptilian cryptid that's described as being half alligator and half human. It's rumored to inhabit the Louisiana swamps where it preys upon people and animals. See, that makes sense because at first you look at that word and you think, oh, that's like Spanish, right? And then I saw the wa part and I thought it was Asian, but no, this is what do they call it? What are people? Cajun. This is a Cajun word. Parlangois. It's French, bro.
And speaking of cryptids. I want to have a Bigfoot person on, bro. You don't have out of
I
all your
don't think I've
vast connection.
I don't think I've ever done a proper Bigfoot episode. The only episodes I've done on Bigfoot are with my friend Nate Shavoya. Shout out to Nate. He just sent me a 6-pack of beer in the mail. Actually, he sent me a cryptid themed IPA called Bat Squatch, which is cool. So shout out to him. He joined me on my show and we talked about Bigfoot. He actually made a documentary on Bigfoot. And then I did another show with Evan D, who was on Tony Merkel's podcast. And Evan D didn't see a Bigfoot in waking life, but he had astral projections where he went and hung out with Bigfoot. So we talked about astral Bigfoot, but no, I've never had a Bigfoot expert on my podcast. We've had him on, actually, I'm having one on this week. Thank you for bringing that up. Joshua Cutchin will be joining me on my show very soon. He actually wrote the Bigfoot Guide.
So there's a guy here in Florida. Oh, another Florida podcast is a Cult 45. He's got a buddy that made the Boggy Monster.
Oh, did I say Evan D? I meant Seb Bland. Evan D is a Cult 45. He lives in Florida. I actually met Evan. He came up and chilled. But Seb is the guy who saw the astral Bigfoot.
So shout out to Evan D. He's got a buddy who did a Skunk Ape. That's the Florida Bigfoot documentary. I think we should have him on because it's on Amazon Prime. I think you can check it out. It's really good. Oh, I've seen that, bro. Is that the guy who can talk and telepathically talk to Bigfoot? I think I texted you guys about that.
They might talk about that guy in this book, but this book is written by Joshua Cutchin and Timothy Renner, and as far as I know, they're just authors. They're not like weirdos.
Shout out to Rob. Rob said I did drugs and met the devil.
Just kidding. For anyone who does talk to Bigfoot, I don't think you're a weirdo. That's not nice.
It's not nice, but come on, bro. I've seen some people. This guy, I think he was on Tony's podcast actually as of recently, because I've been getting into the paranormal and some cryptid stuff in my in between before, after I come out of doing like deep research on a project, which obviously the big thing I was talking about for a while was the homunculus. I went balls deep on that. I like to just entertain my mind with other stuff that I didn't get to ingest while I was doing deep research. Because what people don't understand is I kind of shut myself out when I'm doing this deep research. I stick on one topic. Do what?
We could tell. You were in a homunculus hole for a few months there.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. So,
well, you're talking about something that I do, and it makes me, I think, a better researcher. I schedule my podcasts listening. When I'm listening to podcasts, I'll listen to something like research oriented, and then I'll listen to comedy. Then I'll go, I go flip flop because it gives you like a break to like digest, because the comedy podcast, I'm not like absorbing any of that information. It might as well just be noise, I'm listening. Occasionally I'm laughing at what they're saying, but I'm still thinking about whatever it was that I was just learning about. One example is I mentioned earlier, Recluse, his podcast, The Farm Mach 2. They've been going down some really crazy deep rabbit holes talking about where politics and conspiracy theories intersect and all of these different fringe movements that are responsible for a lot of the conspiracy theories. People think like all of these conspiracy theories are just like thought up by like whack jobs and stuff. No, not at all. There's plenty of intelligent people out there doing this research and finding these conspiracy theories to be valid and then validating them. But then, unfortunately, there's a group of people who have more of a militant approach to these subjects where they're trying to, for political reasons, spread certain theories, right? So one thing that I found really interesting was that there was this group, and I don't remember any of the details, but it's more the mechanism that I'm kind of highlighting here. They would sort of go out and promote all this stuff about abortion, right? they were anti-abortion, but they would promote pro-abortion stuff in order to get people riled up to go out and vote anti-abortion, right? So they use these strategies where maybe they're pretending to be for a certain cause, but their aim is to actually not rally for that cause, but to rally against it, right? So they're sort of like co-opting it by like becoming, you know, that and being an exaggerated form of that, so that instead of people sympathizing with that cause, they, you know, resist it, right? It's maybe better if I remembered the details of like which group did what, but I think it was a religious group that was doing it because they're anti-abortion. So, but they were, you know, going and promoting like these things that were duplicitous, right? Because if they really truly are anti-abortion, why would they say anything but, you know, that, right? And that's just an example. I don't have a stance on abortion either way. I just feel like, you know, that's important for people who are interested in conspiracy theories to understand, is like some of these theories, you know, they're using correct information as misinformation, right? That's the tricky part, is like sometimes like someone who is against your freedom might use an idea that provokes freedom in order to corral you into, you know, some sort of trap, right? So you're thinking, oh, okay, this is coming from people who care about my freedom. Meanwhile, in the long run, they don't have your best interests in mind. It's freedom for them. Like another example of this is the Bundy crowd that did the sort of standoff with the Bureau of Land Management and the federal government. They, you know, have great points. And they're all about constitutional freedom. I'm not against any of those points. I think there's a lot of merit in that. But they were used by big oil companies to try to take land away from the federal government. I don't think they were successful in the long run, because the federal government protects all of this land out there. So they're trying to use the libertarian parties, big corporations are, under the guise of, oh, we need to give the power back to the people, when in reality, once the power goes back to the people, those big corporations are just going to come in, buy all the land, and start raping it, you know, fracking it, taking all the oil, destroying natural parks and things like that. I don't agree with most of the federal government, but I do appreciate the federal parks. You know, I think that's an incredible thing that we have in this country, is that we're able to preserve these big swaths of land and protect them and keep the environment safe from poachers and polluters, you know. That doesn't mean that I think the environment's in crisis like a lot of these, you know, young, uneducated college kids do. I think there's a lot of misinformation there. But, you know, that's the tricky part of a lot of this stuff. It's like triple layered, you know, lies on both sides, because they're trying to control both parts of the equation. They want people fighting over two lies instead of seeing the truth. You know, they don't want the truth involved in the debate. They want people to be focused on two red herrings, you know, a red and a blue one.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing with, I'm not real big on, and I know I talk about the lizard people a lot, but like the whole political geopolitics, conspiracies, Assange, and all these, you know, I'm never really been big into that whole crowd of conspiracies.
You seem more like the cryptid, paranormal, alien, like that's more
occult.
Your vibe. Yeah.
Yeah, the occult 100%. That's what I'm at. I'm
into that stuff. And I like where all the occult stuff intersects with that, because I don't think they're separate. I think those...
Because well, and you can, the one bleeds into the other, because I think the reasoning behind a lot of these elites is for some occult power. That's the whole thing. But when you have, they're going to continue to do what they're going to do, and as long as people are falling for this two-party system, red blue, it's all MK Ultra mind control type of thing, where they use language to control your mind. I think 100%, you know, the grammar becomes the grimoire type of thing, where you're spelling words, and this look at the president of the United States. That dude's a zombie, bro. And you can't tell me this guy. I don't think that he's at the top of the cabal ruling the lizard people, doing some magical ritual. There's just no way. The dude is too...
Come on, man. I need to
Come on, man.
I'm trying to
Come
get.
on,
I'm here
Chris.
for my re-election. Come on, man.
You know what I'm saying though? Like, so I think that they it's hidden in plain sight when it comes to all that. I didn't vote this time around. I don't vote because I think if it really truly mattered, they wouldn't let you do it. It's the illusion of choice, and it's what David Icke talks about, where it's one thing to be in a prison where you can touch and feel the bars, and another thing to be in a prison where you can't touch and feel the bars, where you're still in a mental prison.
That's the thing, Juan, is they don't want you participating in local government. You've been psyoped into that in a way.
You think I've been psyop, bro?
Yeah, because that's where, and I'm not trying to get into this totally because we have our guest joining us in a second. So let's continue this conversation on Patreon, because I agree with you. Like, there's a certain the way you dove into the homunculus research, and then you're like, okay, now I need to like chill out and like listen to like some other stuff. Like, let's talk to someone about Bigfoot. Like for me, I'll do a spat where I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna focus on like my show, and then like now I feel like I'm in the midst of like, all right, parapolitics, what's going on with these cults, what's going on with the occults, like all of this stuff. So anyways, we'll take that conversation into the Patreon. For everyone in the live chat, thank you for being here. Chris, I just want you to know that 50 people were here on time, and 52 including Juan and I. And you were late. What do you do? What do you have to say for yourself, Chris? Our favorite friend here on the Illuminati Confirmed podcast.
But first of all, favorite friend, you better rephrase that.
Best
so
friend.
what, bro?
Best friend.
First of all, should be the most exclusive friend that you have.
True.
A. B. Well, A. Oh, host. Yeah, man.
Fart Boys, baby. Check it out, everybody. If you sign up on the Patreon, I'll send you a Fart Boys sticker. Check out Fart Boys. Chris has got a bunch of Fart Boys gear, merch for sale. Chris, thanks for joining us. Our guest is waiting in the waiting room. We're going to let him in.
Let's do it.
For everybody who hasn't read the title of the show, Old World Florida is the name of our guest's YouTube channel. You can find our buddy Juan there. Juan and him do a show. What's the name of your show that you do with him, Juan? The Cocaina Cowboys? That's
Cocaina Cowboys, and it's about the old world, Tartarian-esque ideas and the corruption of history. So you can find us on there.
fantastic.
Yo, call me Griselda Blanco. You're
Well, here he is, Dr. Narco Longo, joining Brazil. What'd you just call yourself? Brazil Blanco?
Bro, first, we know immediately who hasn't seen the documentary.
What?
Somebody called you Beach Santa in the chat, bro.
Well, here he is, looking like he just hit a fresh wave to shore and landed in this Zoom chat. What's up, Dr. Longo? Welcome to the Illuminati Confirmed, brother. Nice to meet you.
What's up, guys?
Love the energy, brother. Let's keep it up,
Nice
dude.
to see you.
Yeah.
Well, I start off slow and I finish off at your mom's house. So
Don't talk to Juan like that, bro. You're going to bring the smoke, homie.
Right.
This is my chihuahua, bro. So you better be careful because Chris just comes out and I want to say that Dr. Narco Longo is a transsexual Portuguese woman. So please show your respect. What are your pronouns, Dr. Longo? Can you tell the listeners? Well, I know you're working on that surgery to get that taken off. But
Bro, I'm too old for this shit, dog.
Yeah, what are we doing here?
Like, what are you doing to me, dog?
All right. Well, there's some inside jokes that you guys could fill yourselves in on if you go check out Juan and Dr. Longo's show together. But, dude, we have you here on Illuminati Confirmed. It's so epic, what I've seen from your channel in just the past few days. I'm impressed. I think you're covering a lot of really unique subjects, and I love that it's local to where you live. I've only been to Florida as a kid, so unfortunately I don't have much to go on for geographical relation, but I'm curious. I'm stoked. Next time I go to Florida, I'm definitely going to use your channel as a sort of roadmap. I want to start off by asking you, how did you pick up on this, that there was something maybe where you live that was waiting to be uncovered, this sort of mystery looming in your own backyard? What was the first indication?
Mark, hold up.
was a great question. I don't know why you're.
That was a
I
great
understand
question.
we're gonna get back to it. You know what I'm saying? But we first need to understand, like, is there a previous relationship between these two?
They're
These two
co-hosts.
Yeah, we do. We've met in person. Narco Longo has made sweet love to me. They don't call him Dr. Longo for no reason. And we host a show together. So we've done a few shows together. And by the way, somebody said, is this guy a time traveler? I think he got my grandma pregnant.
First of all, that seems like a fact. But second of all, did you know there's a pro snowboarder named Arthur Longo that's absolutely fucking insane?
Yeah, he's my cousin.
Is that right?
Yeah.
You bullshit.
This guy's too slick, dude. I can't trust anything he's saying
I don't
right
trust
off
a
the
goddamn
bat.
word.
Guy's slimy,
He's just
bro.
rolling with everything we're throwing at him. So
Illuminati confirmed.
let's walk it back a little bit. Walk it back. I asked you a good question. When did this start for you, brother? Yeah, I don't think. Are you an actual doctor in the science of archaeology, or is this sort of more like armchair doctor?
No, fake doctor for sure.
Okay.
If that's not obvious, then
Well, you got some cool stuff behind you. It looks like you could be like a collector of antiques at the very least. So I don't know.
no, it's just a bookstore.
Right
Bookstore,
on.
crystal store.
Right on.
But,
Right on.
Yeah, you fucking dummy, Mark.
It wouldn't be the first time.
So I've always been into this stuff. Always been kind of aware of the conspiracy sphere, the whatever it was before Tartaria. That name didn't get used till like 5 years ago. About before that, there's a lot of old world stuff. I remember watching a New Earth video. If you've never checked out New Earth, that's a YouTube channel. I don't know what they're up to now, but they kind of really were paved the way as far as this Tartaria old world, America being the Old Testament lands, stuff like that. And she had a video about Florida that it didn't really go into much of what I talk about, but she was explaining how all the canals in Florida and all the waterways that we're told are somewhat natural are actually pretty land-made. And we have canals that run for hundreds and hundreds of miles in some cases, or dozens of miles. And they're old, they're deep, and even what's stretched out today is not quite what you can see from satellite images. You can tell the difference. So that was in Florida, but I hadn't really seen anyone dive deep on Florida. So I was a fan of Tartarian truthers. That's the two Australian girls. And basically their whole thing is Australia. And I was thinking, well, if there's that much in Australia in that small of a window, Florida must be, a treasure trove of information as well. And, I've always been aware of like the Bermuda Triangle connections and how everyone ties that into Atlantis. And the Bahamas, for those that don't know, geographically, the Bahamas are pretty much is Florida. So to place the Bahamas as a possible Atlantis, by default, Florida also comes into the conversation, especially when you start to understand what the Gulf Stream is. Basically, if there are resets, if there are freezes, the only warm water on the planet, for the most part, would be oozing out of the Gulf of Mexico. So that actually keeps a stream melted through the ice in periods of, ice ages when the glaciers come down. So this goes from Gulf of Florida to the Gulf of Finland, the Baltic Sea. This is why the summer isles of England get tropical plants and vegetation, somewhat subtropical, but it's because the warm water keeps the land
Oh yeah,
fertile.
I'm in Connecticut. It'd be unbearable if we didn't have the Gulf Stream all along the East Coast, especially up here in the north part of it.
Hmm.
What are the summer islands of England?
They're basically the Summer Isles, the Southern Isles. There are islands on the south of England, the British.
Mm.
Um,
There's a whole
British
bunch of
island.
those that are autonomous too. Like they're sort of like their own like governing sort of like countries within the
Mhm.
kingdom of the UK. There's some weird ones that
Yeah,
I've heard
if
about.
if you've ever seen Wicker Man,
Oh yeah.
Yeah, of course.
where the guy gets abducted by the cult.
We love
That-
Nicolas Cage around here. If you couldn't tell, Juan has his Nicolas
Oh, well,
Cage.
this-
Nicolas
obscured.
Cage.
This was the original movie, the older one,
Ah, okay.
Wicker Man, where he gets burned in sacrifice.
Christopher Lee, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't remember, but it's
And I
it's
also
from
wanna
like
point out-
the 60s or something.
But that's that what the name of the island is, though.
Isn't it? What? What was that, Chris?
It's,
What you said, the Summer Isles. That would be multiple islands off England, right? So, what the island name is?
I
What
don't
the
I don't
island
remember,
name
just the
is?
Summer Isles, the Southern Isles.
So, like down near like Cork and like all these places in England, right?
Chris.
On the south of
Do you want him to draw you a map?
So I wanted to.
So, I mean,
add-
I've been there. You know what I'm saying? I've been there as a child. So,
But
I
he's
know about-
talking about the Gulf Stream.
Wait,
Let's not
wait,
get bogged down on
Mark.
this.
Mark, we're gonna do a new thing this time,
Okay.
where I'm gonna tell you what it is, and you gonna shut the fuck up.
Oh God. All right. Tell us in the chat how you like this new segment. Go ahead, Chris.
No, I'm just saying, man. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like the Summer Isles. That means there are multiple islands. That means they would have names. I'm asking the guests what the name of maybe one of these places would be,
What does it matter? We're talking about the Gulf Stream.
because I'm trying to get an idea, bro. What the fuck is you talking about?
That's what Wikipedia is for.
No, bitch, it's not.
So I wanted to add that as of recently, I don't know if you guys have caught Graham Hancock's new show, but they were talking, back to Florida, the Florida connection. We have they visited the Bimini Road in the Bahamas, and I'm sure it's getting blown up because Rogan plugged in all this stuff, and I was watching the show, and so there's that connection where they said, I think it might be natural. I think it might be. It looks natural, bro.
What are
Come
you
on.
talking
Bimini?
about, Juan? The Bimini roads you think are natural? Dr. Longo, hit him with the facts, bro.
So I interviewed two of the people who were some of the first to go with a research team that actually went and dove there. And I have some of the best footage in the world, dare I say, of the Bimini Road, because these guys went there and they took like underwater cell phone footage. So I have that in my Saxer Stones documentary.
Underwater cell phone footage.
Yep, something. But it was called the AquaQuest, if you want to look it up, the AquaQuest.
Cool.
And the AquaQuest went to the Bimini Road. They went to the pyramids underneath the water in the Bahamas. And they found gold ore in all these sunken ships. So
Do you know whose ships they were?
they were saying they were Spanish and French ships.
So this is like doubloons and all this shit, right? Like this is all like Goonies
Mhm.
type shit, right?
Is Fort Jefferson in proximity to the Bimini roads? I know that's talked about in the red, like because of the red bricks and.
I mean, if you had a ship, it's definitely, a not so far journey. But
Okay.
that is more towards Key West. So
Okay.
it's down and west, more towards like Cuba.
Okay.
And the Bahamas is out towards off the coast of West Palm.
And you failed to mention, Dr.
Palm Beach,
Longo,
pretty much wet.
you and I did an episode on Fort Jefferson, only available on the Patreon. So check out the Patreon. Dr. Narcolongo also has a Patreon. You can see his nipples on there. And you can check
Yeah.
out my Patreon. I don't show you my nipples, but patreon.com/podcast.
Are you from like East Coast or the South, East or any of that? Or like
Southeast. I'm from Boca Raton, Florida.
Oh, you're
Nah.
Florida native, right?
Now I live in Lake Worth, which is pretty much Palm Beach, where Trump lives. And
Well, Chris here is a Caribbeano. I don't know if that's the correct term. He lived in the Caribbean for a long time, hence his colorful background there. Chris, have you ever seen any strange old world structures in your many years spent down there?
Somebody said, "Who's the old man? Who's the old guy?" In the
Hey,
car?
whoa.
The old guy is Santa's benzo dealer. The disrespect, Chris.
I mean, at least people are funny, you know. I mean, it'd be good. It wouldn't be as good if it wasn't funny. I mean, it's fun.
Can we get it?
I have seen what do you call it? Like you know, what I mean, like fucking. What do you call it when you see like the little like they draw little pictures on rocks?
Petroglyphs.
That shit. I seen that shit.
Okay, so you've seen petroglyphs.
Yeah, but like I've seen them though, like, and they're old. They don't make no sense. They're mad high up on rocks inside of a canyon. I have seen this with my own two eyes in the Caribbean. Well, so I understand that there's like Tahinos and there's Arawak and there's Caribs and there's many native peoples that have come through this part of the world and different parts of time, and there's volcanoes that are real, you fucking bitches, and yeah, and these things change.
Hold on, shots fired, bro. We're not in the we're collateral there, dude. What is it called?
Yeah, you're collateral damage, you fucking bitch. Because
we
I'm
don't
firing hot, fucking blazing fucking rounds.
Anytime now we talk about the Caribbean, he's going at it about volcanoes. So I wanted to ask Chris that because I think there's a lot going on in that one specific area. We've already mentioned quite a few. We got the Bimini Roads. We got obviously Fort Jefferson, which is a little more modern, we'll say. Who knows? Maybe there's evidence to say otherwise. But then there's the Bach Tower. We got Coral Castle. We got, this pyramid that I'd never heard of before.
Coral Castle's in Florida, Mark. But yeah, you're right.
That's what we're focusing on right now, Florida.
There's a difference, but it is what it is.
Where did you just come from right now? Where were you before we started this podcast? Is some fucking saloon or something? You're really salty right now.
So it's old world Florida, Chris, and we're going to be focusing a little bit on Florida.
No, I fuck with you, but if you guys are literally, Florida is not the Caribbean.
Well,
what?
Yeah, you're right.
We're talking about Atlantis, the Gulf of Mexico. We're talking about the region.
What the fuck do you mean? What, dude? Google.
All right. Well, this show's unraveling. Dr. Longo, we're sorry that you have to witness this. Dr. Longo, tell us more about what inspired you, because you're quite an interesting character there. You're in your own curated bookshop, Crystal Shop, right? Juan visited you there and did a show with you. So what's going on, man? Is this like a research station here? You're collecting and culminating this old world evidence in your shop?
Not so much. It's my brother and I.
Okay.
And I do the channel on my own pretty much. And I work here a lot for sure. And I reference a lot of the stuff in here, of course. The Bach Tower book being a great example. The Bach Tower book has a inscription on it. It has a couple inscriptions on it. And by it, I mean the tower itself. The book is about the tower, and it has illustrations. We've also been to the tower. I've been, and Juan, I think you've been, right? So basically, you have Adam and Eve on the tower. You have Poseidon in the west coast of Florida in the Gulf, which is significant evidence as far as Poseidon. Neptune was the godfather of Atlantis. The Gulf of Mexico is allegedly the crystal sea of Atlantis because it's a perfect bay. It's nice and flat, crystal clear. And there's all these connections between the Greek, between the Phoenicians, who are basically the grandchildren of the Atlanteans, and there's a lot of evidence that they were here. But the Bach Tower has what I just told you, Adam and Eve, the 12 signs of the zodiac, but also a fleur-de-lis, the old Merovingian symbol. And as I did my Saxer documentary, I found John Saxer uses the fleur-de-lis. The fleur-de-lis is on all the old maps of Florida. The fleur-de-lis was on the tower that the Indians built as a gift to the Europeans when they got here. And this is like a monolith. They built a monolith, and it had the fleur-de-lis on it.
What did they build this out of?
I don't know. It was 500 years ago.
Oh, wow. It's not still standing, or?
I don't believe so. They have a replica either in St. Augustine or Jacksonville.
Typically, a monolith would be stone, but down there, who knows? It could be coral or even some sort of seashell.
Well, yeah, it's stone. Probably coquina.
Okay.
Probably.
Okay. Well, cool.
So, and that was the first. You're talking about the Tequestas, right? Is that the name or is that the ones that are further up?
I think these were Timucua, if I'm not mistaken. The Timucua were the tall ones. Mm-hmm. I have some pictures if you want to see some pictures.
Oh yeah, feel free to share your screen, dude. I've heard of giants in Florida. I think it was one of the early Spanish explorers who when he came upon a shore, he saw these very large giant people. I think they even were like dancing and had like a fire or something, and they determined that these were cannibals when they landed and were attacked, and some of their men were killed by these giants, and they fled.
Yo, what happens when you outfuck the cannibals? You heard me? And you just eat them. You know what I'm saying?
And you become a cannibal. Then you become a cannibal, Chris. That's like the zombie movies.
Cannibal the cannibal, and then you stop that shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, maybe. Go ahead and share your screen.
Creative in your thought process, man.
Well, yeah, we're not. We're dumb as boards over here. But anyways, we're waiting on Dr. Longo.
Hey, at least I made Juan laugh. He's a Puerto Rican, so he's Taino, he's Portuguese, he's Jewish, he's black, he's white, mostly Spanish. But you know what I'm saying? That's what you are, Juan. You should take offense to all these statements.
Jewish, bro? I don't know about Jewish. Fact. I'd say Spanish.
Hey, Google yourself.
Were you hanging out with Kanye before you came on this show? What's going on? We're on YouTube right now, Chris. What are you doing over there in Oregon?
No, I spread love, man. That's my MO. That's my intention.
You're coming in with some West Coast energy right now. We're trying to have an East Coast conversation, okay? Please.
So fucking nerd are you talking about, bro? I'm from the part of the world that y'all is talking about. Let's get into it. So we got mad motherfucking tall ass Indians, but we don't have any record of them shits. But I mean, I got you, Smithsonian. They hid the bodies, right? And then we got star forts in Puerto Rico. I fucks with you. And they got those circular things at the very corners that aren't big enough for somebody to stand in. Very weird. I got you, bro. We got petroglyphs. I've seen them with my own two eyes. We got fake volcanoes. We got Port Royal that just disappeared into the. I got you, man. We got all this. It's a weird ass part of the world. There's no doubt.
You gonna pull up your screen, Dr. Longo?
Oh yeah.
It's a weird part of the world. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to get on board.
Is that sharing?
Yeah.
What am I looking at?
You're looking at Zoom screen, my big dog.
Yeah, turn off the furry porn, bro. Don't. Not here.
On, bro.
Can you see this article?
Yeah, we're kind of zoomed in. Where should we start? Where the word Florida is highlighted, or?
No. We gotta just dance around a little. What was I talking about?
The Timucua, the giants that come in with the monoliths.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Right. So the fleur-de-lis, as I said, here are those giants you were talking about. And if we zoom in on their tower that they're worshiping, this monolith, right? Very Kubrickian. They've got their harvest out in front of it, arrows offering to it, wreaths around it.
Oh, yeah.
And you've got the fleur de lis, right? This is 400 years ago, roughly.
So that's 1600, give or take.
I don't know. This was
Wait. 2020 minus 400, 1640.
Roughly. I'm estimating because Juan Ponce de Leon was 1513.
All right.
These were the French who came after him.
So fleur de lis is a French sign, no?
For the most part, it's Merovingian, which extends into pretty much all the European nobility.
All right,
but mostly Frankish, yeah, French.
Okay, word.
But also the Swiss, as I'm going to explain.
They border each other, don't they?
Yes.
Okay.
Same bloodlines, but also the Byzantine used the same symbols because the Merovingian dynasties segmented into the Byzantine church to the Greek Orthodox, as I'm going to show you. But basically, if we want to read this small part down here, this Chief Athor is an extremely handsome man, intelligent, reliable, strong, of exceptional height, exceeding our tallest men by 1.5 feet.
Yeah.
And I basically found out that their tallest man was about 6'3".
It's about 8-footer.
Exactly. That puts this guy at about 7'9". And that would be
tall.
Yes. And in another picture that I have, it explains how they live to 350 years old. Wow. 300 average.
And they also, I want to add on the history of the Timucua people, they also did blood rituals where they would drink the blood of the young and stuff like that. Not children, but of the younger men in the tribe. So they had some weird blood stuff going on. So maybe that's how they were able to live for so long. I don't know, but I found that interesting that they were doing.
Is it possible that was, not to, cast too much suspicion on this, but is it possible there was a mistranslation? I imagine that they weren't native English speakers and somebody had to translate and, how do we know that they're counting the same years as us? What if they say every 4 moons is a year? I mean, that could be, mistranslation.
That's a good critique. I'm going to show you once we get to another picture. It's going to tell you how he pretty much says, yeah, well, this guy looks 300 years old. He's seen a 90-year-old person, and this person they're saying 300 years old looks older than what our humans look like they get to. So,
you guys ever seen Big Trouble in Little China? You know what I'm saying? Kurt Russell. You know what I'm saying? He goes and talks to what man, you guys are so fucking young, dude. This is crazy. Big Trouble Little China, you know what I'm saying? Kurt Russell, and he gets into some beef, you know what I'm saying? And in Chinatown, in San Francisco, and he goes and he talks to this lady, and you can only see her behind a thing, and it's a snake lady. You know what I'm saying? She got a tail. It's crazy, dude. Anyway, sorry. I always take it on a divulge a thing, and nobody understands my thing. Sorry, bro.
It's okay, Chris. So where were we, Dr. Longo?
So here is the Bach Tower that I was explaining. And on the compass here, we have a fleur de lis. And I could probably talk about this etching for an hour, about all the stuff that's on it and what's not on it. But what's important is you have the fleur de lis right next to Poseidon. And that has a lot of implications. Now, John Saxer and I, when we were filming our latest documentary about the Brazilian pepper tree, we met with a psychic, and this psychic has a lot of basically independently, she came to the same conclusion that the Florida, Yucatan, Caribbean, Straits of Florida, Bermuda Triangle area is Atlantis. is the New Atlantis, etc. And she, independent of John, had never heard of John's research, never heard of E. Calloway's research, who said Florida was the Garden of Eden, never heard of the land advertisement advertising Florida as the Garden of Eden. She still arrived to the same conclusion through, psychic means, essentially.
And I don't think that's the first time either. Edgar Sayce predicted to, like, within the day, the discovery of the Bemini roads. And I think he died before they were discovered. But wow, that's pretty. And you interviewed this woman, Blanca Bayar.
We talked. I didn't interview her, but we're going to be interviewing her in a new segment, new part. But basically, when she was coming up with her cover for this book, she also employed the fleur de lis, not even really knowing the implications of how it affects the research we've been doing. And when she saw the Saxor stones, her husband showed it to her. She was pretty much floored. It was uncanny. They were very shocked because they've been working on this stuff for 10 years. This book came out in 2012, I should have said.
Can you show the Saxor stones for those that don't know what it is and what that implies?
You want me to show some stones?
Yeah, just so people get an idea of what the Saxor stones are.
Okay, for
I don't
sure.
know if you have any pictures of them or not.
No, yeah, I got some ready.
And what that implies about Florida being either the Garden of Eden or the hub of this Atlantis.
So here's John Saxor. He is descended from Swiss royalty. That is a fact. A lot of people go around saying bullshit like that. I hear people say that all the time coming into the store. I'm this, I'm that, He's the real deal. All you need to do is look at his last name, then go look at the Queen of England's last name before they changed their name because they were fighting the Germans in World War I, and their name is German.
What's their name?
Their original name was Saxa Kothberg. Yeah. Now, their new name, and that's a German name, Saxa actually means German. So the Saxons, Anglo-Saxon, means German.
Nice.
So the Sax, he is part of the Sax line of Switzerland, where this actually goes all the way back to Isaac in the Bible, the line of Isaac. Isaac became Sac, it became Saco, and this dynasty extended into Spain too. They have the Sax family there. Blah, blah, blah. This man has what you could call royal blood, and some would say that might bring psychic abilities, memories, stuff like that. I'm a believer in that stuff. Trust me, I've seen enough to know the difference between fakers and the real deal. Now, basically, he got some traction with his theories in the 2000s. And his whole spiel basically is he moved down to Florida after being an Egyptologist, pyramidologist, researching, and he was a little bit into like ancient alien stuff before there was the TV show. It was just Zecharia Sitchin. He actually knows Zecharia Sitchin, knew him. He knows the other guy that has the ancient aliens.
Eric Von Daniken?
Yes, he debated Eric Von Daniken at an Ancient Aliens conference in like the 70s or 80s. And he debated against him on whether or not there was a capstone pyramid. Maybe he wasn't debating against him, but he was debating at the same conference with Eric Von Daniken, and he was friends with him as well. So basically, when he moved down to Florida, he knew a little bit about limestone, right? And he began seeing in the front of people's houses here in Florida, there are stones with holes through them like you would not believe. And if you know anything about ancient maritime civilizations, they used stone anchors like these except there's only one problem. The ones in the Mediterranean and in Polynesia in the Pacific, they're on average about 300 pounds. These guys are about 5 to 12,000 pounds.
Oh, wow.
I seen rocks like that in Oregon though on the river, dude, with perfect holes in them.
Not like this.
Well, Chris, what you're talking about,
Just like that.
Chris, I know exactly what you're talking about, and that we've discussed that on a past show. That's a phenomena that's related
Not
to
like that. Not like that one. Not like that one.
So what Chris is talking about could possibly be related. So there's a phenomena near bodies of water, typically waterfalls and rivers, specifically where waterfalls come to rivers. You'll have lightning that strikes quartz or granite that has a high amount of iron in it, and it will create these perfect spheres when the lightning strikes the rock. So if you're, canoeing or kayaking down a river, you might see these perfect bore circles, like perfectly cored out cylinders into rocks. And I had no idea how this happened. My friend Michael Juan, who's been on the show, took us to a site in Pennsylvania where they have some of these. My girlfriend and I have seen some at different waterfalls up in the Northeast.
Strikes it?
Yeah, that's at least how a past guest explained it to me. He's an architect, and he claims that he saw it happen right in front of him.
What are the chances, though, that a fucking lightning hits it right?
Well, that's the thing. There's enough iron in the rock that it attracts the lightning, and the motion of the water makes it sort of also a perfect atmosphere for this sort of thing to go on. So I know we're sort of going on a tangent, but who knows? Maybe this ancient culture knew about electricity and its ability to do this. Maybe they figured out a way to, just manufacture these Moore's heads or these anchors with these huge boring holes in them, not needing a drill. They just were, setting up the right scenario for lightning to hit it.
What's it called? You said Moore's heads, Moor.
Well, a Moor, yeah, a Moor is another word for an anchor
too, right?
Well, the Moors are named that because they were sailors, and they either they gave the name to the anchor or they got the name from the anchor. But a Moor is it's a medieval
I mean, it's
word.
1,000 years later you drink an Irish whiskey because it's fucking made from Irish, thing.
Well,
right?
and that's the thing. So you have these huge stone anchors all around Florida. Chris mentioned there's stuff like this in Oregon. I've seen stones like this on people's property here in Connecticut. So I know this isn't just a Florida thing, but maybe Florida has the right evidence to shed light on what's going on elsewhere. What do you
Mark,
think?
you gotta take into consideration too. This isn't necessarily meant to, because that one is a drill, Mark. Obviously, right? The other ones that we've seen as perfect circles just in nature. And to add to that point, this isn't meant to shit on your theory or conclusion or whatever, right? Hypothesis. Right. This is just, I have also seen these perfect circles in rocks in the river in Oregon. That's it. That's literally it. Like, that's it.
Okay. Dr. Longo.
Wait. Why did it take y'all so long to get, like, bro, I'm just saying, I've seen this in natural phenomena.
That's what I'm saying. I've seen it too.
Yeah.
I tried
So it's not necessarily,
What are your thoughts on that, Narco, where this could perhaps be some sort of natural phenomenon and not evidence of some highly advanced
No, that's
civilization?
not what I'm suggesting. That's not what I'm suggesting.
But I want to hear his thoughts, though, because right, we have to debunk every which way we can.
We could
that's
take
also
that approach, but I was trying to add to what he was saying, not cast suspicion on it. Yeah,
me too. Don't listen to us, man.
He looks flummoxed. I think we flummoxed him. Dr. Longo, you don't, pressure's off, brother. Fire away. Like, whatever you want to say. You could take it in a different direction if you have nothing to say on that.
These rocks are not found anywhere else. Okay. Not the same material, not the same style. You don't have limestone like this, crushed coquina, formed like this. And the dead giveaway are the rope marks. If you look at this one, can you see my mouse?
Mm-hmm.
You see right here?
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You have about dozens, if not hundreds of years of rope usage right there. That is when we look here, it's out of frame a little bit, but you can see right here the same deal. This little divot right here.
So that's from a
Where-
rope.
That is where the rope would be hugging the
So that's
corner.
that's a boat that was tied into that. That's an anchor, but it's on the land though, right?
Not necessarily.
All right, explain, please.
Now, it could be a mooring stone. Now, they
So this
could
is
be
a stone that's out in the water that a boat would tie into.
from the patina. John asserts that they were submerged in the water often and brought out of the water and submerged again. Some of the other shapes, you'll see two holes, like when we look at this one. If you go look at, I didn't bring a picture because I didn't prepare one, but you could probably grab one off Safari. Stone anchors in the Mediterranean. They're about 300 pounds and they look just like this, and they'll have two holes drilled parallel through them like this.
So is that you got to excuse the dumb question. I'm literally confused. Like, is this a rock that was out in water and that an anchor would like grab a hold of? Is this was this actually the anchor that a boat had on it? You're saying
Probably. This one was most likely deployed in the water, because when you have two holes like that, if you go look at stone anchors from the Mediterranean, they will have two holes because when you deploy them into the water, they sink and hit the ground. Now, they often would get stuck because it's kind of mucky down there. Now, two men would go to either side of the ship and they would pull rocks from either side of the ship and would be able to rock this free, would be able to shimmy it free.
So they dive off the boat into the water and then they shake this
No.
stuff loose?
You got to keep up, dude.
I'm trying, bro. Trust me, I'm trying, bro.
Well, Chris.
Wait, I don't need that. Quiet. Let's hear it.
They would go to either end of the boat and they would pull the ropes up and they would be able to shimmy the rock free from above, because the rope's down and the anchor's down in the water.
Right.
It's stuck. And the only reason you'd have two holes on there is if you would be shimmying it free, which, how about I just pull up an ancient stone anchor?
It's like a single anchor, but it is attached to the front and the back of the boat.
Hang on.
Are y'all confused? I'm sorry. I'm trying to understand this, because I believe like this kind of thing. Like I love, dude.
No,
like
it's fine, Chris. We're just, I think.
Here I'm sharing. I've got an example. You see my screen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
Okay.
How heavy how heavy are these stones? Would they be giants, Longo? Because
These are about 300 pounds. Like I said, these are the ones you normally see. And you see how very often they'll have two holes next to each other.
Right.
You see here?
Mm-hmm.
That is for the purpose, or two holes at the top, one at the bottom. That is for the purpose of shimmying them free once they're stuck at the bottom, which happened very often. If you know anything about stone anchors, the ones that have one hole at the top, like see this is the one at Mount Ararat. This is how you know they're stone anchors. Noah's Ark landed in the mountains of Ararat. This stone right here that we're looking at in the top right was dropped by the ark from the flood. Now you may say, oh, well, the ark story is allegorical, it's symbolic. Yes. Now, just because Shakespeare wrote a play about King James, King Henry, does not mean that King Henry was fake. Am I right? So just because the Bible mentions places like this and the Bible is allegorical does not mean that these events did not transpire. For example, the Templars knew exactly what this rock was. That's why they marked it with their cross. About 15 times, it looks like 7 times, I don't know. But basically, if you can make it out in there, they have Templar crosses carved into them.
So the Templars realized that was the Ark of the Covenant or whatever.
Yes.
And they put their logo on it.
These are on the mountains of Ararat, and these are ballast stones. So these are actually not anchors. And how do we know that? Because of the way they're shaped. You have
near the boat. That's right.
This is kind of like a sinker on a fishing rod.
Okay.
Right, like a weight. And this would basically go under the ship and would actually be tied by ropes under the ship. Let me see if I can show you what I mean.
To stabilize it?
Yes, ballast stones. Nautical people will know what they are.
Yeah, no, this is we don't need to look at a ship diagram to understand what you're saying. It's very clear. Yeah, so what's perplexing about this particular stone is now obviously the water level would be much lower than it was at that time. Clearly, this is on a mountain, so we're talking about during the Great Flood, which is recorded by every culture. So I mean, at least most cultures that had written writing.
Yeah, you can go on with the Saxer saga, this Saxer character, John Saxer, because he's found these stones. They were in front of people's houses. What happens after that?
Well, he put 2 and 2 together. He's living in Tarpon Springs, Florida, which is unusual because it's a Greek colony, a Greek settlement, where around 1890, Greek people started moving there. And actually, a lot of them moved there. And now, between 1 in 10 and 1 in 2, basically, either half of people or 1/10 of people claim Greek heritage. It varies. Some people consider themselves Greek, some people don't. But it's the most Greek city in America. It's one of the largest Greek diasporas outside of Greece, which is very significant. And we're told that all these Greek people came here just for the sponge fishing.
That's which part of Florida, to be clear?
Southwest, just north of Tampa Bay.
Okay, wow.
And Tampa Bay was declared about 100 years ago, 110 years ago, in 1911, to be the original Garden of Eden by the Florida Department of Land something.
Man, that's goddamn marketing, bro.
You want me to share again? I can flip through some
please.
stuff.
So they declared it as a sort of, like Chris suggested, a sort of tourist sort of catchphrase, or is this an actual archaeological statement that they're making?
Well, we can cross-reference a couple, and I think after that it should be clear that the west coast of Florida was something special, and it has all the Edenic qualities that I would look for when looking for the paradise from the Old Testament.
Edenic.
So
Edenic. That was fun.
So basically, you have John. This is that article that I was talking about.
On the
John found this article. That is part of what set him sent him looking in this direction. Another thing that he found was a quartz artifact. A quartz artifact that I talk about in the documentary, but I couldn't show because we didn't have a picture of it. It was in the museum. You could go and see it, but you couldn't bring it home, right? Now, basically, we went looking for that quartz artifact, and we actually found this article that he had been telling me about, but I didn't even know if it existed. We went into the Tarpon Springs Museum looking for this article, and he was telling these women that worked there, it's here, I know it's here. And they were like, you're crazy, leave us alone. One of them had to leave because they hate him so much, because he's always trying to, truth them when he goes in there. But we found it. One of these ladies reluctantly looked for it and found it. And here it is. You could say this is just advertising, sure. But when we cross-reference it with these other instances, you're going to see that there's something to this.
I mean, they literally have prices on there, dude. They're trying to sell it, dude.
Sure. what they're saying is that the man who was contracted to do this study actually kind of fell in love with the place, like religiously, which is what happens with a lot of these people, as you're going to see. I could read a little bit of it. Basically, what?
Sorry, that can you keep that in mind? That aspect of Florida sort of locking people in and drawing them in. And can we, after this, can we talk about that a little bit? Because that plays into the whole Florida man thing and the energy of Florida. I heard somebody last week say that Florida is another dimension, that we're in another dimension. I forgot who the hell said that to me. But,
Well, I mean, there's merit to that. You know, we can get into that, and it's not as crazy as you'd think.
Can I be horrible here and ask the 30,000 question, which it is what I seem to always do?
Is this
is Florida another dimension? Is that what we're getting at? Or Florida is the Garden of Eden?
I believe Florida is the Garden of Eden.
Okay, cool.
The Garden of Eden has tons of allegorical implications, and all of those remain true.
And Florida used to be bigger? Is that what we was talking about with Bimini?
A little bit at one time.
Okay.
But basically, it's terraformed. It's too flat to be natural. The Bahamas have hills and mountains. The Caribbean has hills and mountains. But Florida is very flat.
The big sandbar.
When you go underneath Florida, you have these caverns, immense caverns. You could drive a semi truck down these caverns underwater. It's insane.
Wait, so these are naturally occurring, because this is the first you mentioned about
like
this.
Aquifer?
So this is,
aquifer. Right. Have you ever heard of the cenotes in the Yucatan?
Bro, they make a James Bond movie about it, bro. The 2 movies back, bro.
Basically, these are cenotes, except they're still underwater. Okay. So they're all these caverns. And Devil's Den, if you've ever seen Devil's Den, this is like a very aesthetic place where it's basically it's a cenote. It's a hole in the limestone, and there's a cavern underneath where the light shines through, and it's a crystal clear swimming pool.
Right.
And people go there, take pictures.
Is there a reason why they named it the Devil's Den? Native Americans?
They name everything sacred devils,
right?
So that people are too afraid to look into it, appreciate it. Now, to hop back to this, if you say, well, this is just like a marketing technique, this is just advertising, you could say that. That might be why they published it.
I mean, maybe they just discovered it. It was so dope, and they were like, "Yeah, we gotta sell this shit, bro." Like, who knows? We don't know where we're at in time space. Like, I'm not trying to shit on your hypothesis. I'm trying to understand it for real.
At the bottom here, it says, emphasizes the truth that the first Garden of Eden was the South, and that wanderers are coming back to enjoy its blessings again. So that would imply that, he's cracked a code. He's not saying, oh, yeah, this is the new Garden of Eden. He's saying this was the Garden of Eden, and God's finest people should come back here. And you're going to see when I talk about E. Calloway, this is E. Calloway. This is a book that he wrote, the original Garden of Eden. And basically you have the 4-headed river system, a natural 4-headed river system. And these are the 4 rivers of Eden. That's what he postulates, not me. But this is north of where Saxor is, but not very far, right? Now, this is a man who was like a nutritionist and a breatharian, basically. He claims to have not eaten later in his life. And he moved down to Florida to reap its benefits as well, right? He came here and he basically says all of these things in Florida qualify it as the Garden of Eden. Here is a man named John Gomez, who was a sailor underneath the pirate. What does it say? Oh, brother-in-law of the pirate chief Gasparilla, who's basically like a Tampa hero, folk hero.
Buccaneer, dude. Tampa Buccaneer, dude.
A buccaneer, exactly. And he was 116 years old when they took his photo right here. And you'll see that a lot of people live to unusual lengths of time, like those Indians that we were talking about earlier. Well, let's check those guys out.
And can I add something here, Longo? Because I'm on the whole alchemical train right now, and right, the tale that they've always told us, especially when you go to school here in Florida and you study in the school system, is the whole Ponce de Leon thing, coming here to find the fountain of youth. And with Christopher Columbus and all, we know that he was associated with them. And I know you and I have talked about how that it might be an alchemical pun of some sorts, right? Pounce of the Lion, Ponce de Leon. And I think that maybe, because there is a conspiracy that says that Christopher Columbus was Saint Germain, what if they're trying to come to Florida or something to find more of that elixir of life? Because that's what they were all about, right? Living forever, immortality, transhumanism. So who knows if there is a connection there, as far as the alchemical connection is what I'm saying, for these people to be drawn here, because they're either they sense an energy or something of that nature. There's something here that draws all these cats in, right? And the right-hand man of John D. Rockefeller, Flagler, also stayed, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Wait, hold on, Juan. What, dude? What?
What are you confused about, Chris?
That was a lot, dog. Like John D. Rockefeller.
Keep up, bro. Come on, man.
Bro, that was a lot, dog. So in Florida, there is a secret power that is the elixir of life, which is you drink it, you last longer, you live long.
That's the premise, yeah. And they came here looking.
You could have said that more simply, bro.
I'm giving you the details in order to fortify that idea, so I don't just spit something out.
I fuck with you, man. I love your shit, bro. No, but that's essentially, I mean, because we've all heard that, right? Like that is the through line here. That Florida elixir of life, whatever you want to call it. You go there, there's a fountain of you drink that waters, you live longer. Right?
Yeah, that's basically the premise. Now it says here, yet they are temperate, describing the Timucuan Indians. Yet they are temperate in their eating, as a result of which they live for a long time. So these guys attributed it to their diet, but you could make the argument that they're in Florida, they're drinking the water, they're drinking the spring water. They would have known about it, of course. And when we look down a little, for one of their chiefs assured me that he was 300 years old, and that his father, whom he showed me, was 50 years older than he. And I can truly say that when I saw him, I thought I was looking at no more than human bones covered with skin. They certainly put Christians to shame who reduced their lifespan of life by holding immoderate feasts and drinking. You listening, Chris? Reduced their span of life by holding... I'm just kidding. Drinking.
All right, I'm sorry. Continue. I just wanted to throw that in there because that is also one of the connections. And it's one of the main ones that... Well, when I was a kid growing up,
where the fuck the water is at?
Well, that's what they were trying to find, bro. But
Florida,
we lost to the shit.
Florida has the highest concentration.
I know, bro. I'm from the East Coast. All the old people moved there. I get you, but they don't live very long. They hit about 90 and they dead, son. So where that fountain
Yeah, that's because they're all going to freaking Mount Sinai Hospital and getting juiced up with pharmaceuticals, bro. They're not. They're doing freaking Slim Fast diets that they order on television. They're not living like the Native Americans did. Come on,
you're diluting the gene pool of intelligence with that fucking statement, bro.
Chris, speak for yourself.
We need to know that goddamn fountain is at, bro. Where's it at?
Jeez, this whole
where's the fountain at?
This whole episode appearance has been a dilution of the intelligence of our show, Chris. Jeez, you're.
Bro, where's the fountain at, bro? Where the fountain?
Where do you think the fountain's at, Dr. Longo?
It's the springs themselves. If you want to get down to it, it's the springs themselves. It's the water itself. That's why Nestle's pulling out about 1 million gallons a day. Coca-Cola, when Coca-Cola had their most loyal appreciation, that original Coke, right, quote unquote. Well, do you know where that was coming from?
Florida.
The Florida Springs. Now,
I thought they was from Georgia.
these companies fight and fight to get the rights to Florida water. Now, there's even products that are advertised as Florida water. And as you're going to see, before the stock market collapse of 29, which was actually triggered by the Florida housing market, just like our modern recessions are today. In 1929, the Florida land boom crashed along with everything else. And basically, people stopped coming to Florida. Well, why were they coming to Florida so much? Because the land boom was when they started building houses for the people to live in. Up until that time, people were just vacationing there by the thousands. And why were they going there? They were going for spring water tourism. So all around Florida, you had these sites, these locations, some of them ancient, some of them very ancient, where people would bathe and drink these waters, bottle it up, bring it home. Some people would bottle it up and sell it for $50, in some other state. Florida water was exported to other countries to be drank by people who were sick. It was considered holy, sacred water. And there's still a product called Florida water. It's like a cologne. And that comes from this, this practice. So spring water tourism was a huge thing in Florida up until the 20s.
Wow.
When everything started getting developed. Then the spring water tourism completely went away, and all the ruins are still out there, and they're all ruins. None of them are functioning. The only ones they have functioning today are the ones out in the swamps and nature, where you have like these parks and stuff. But the original like spring hotels and these concrete structures where the spring water would ooze into and fill up.
Now, is there a connection here to this college that I think was initially built as a hotel, the Flagler University? Am I correct in the name there? Do they have a spring underneath that school?
Yeah, let me look that up on Safari. So not there, not that exact hotel, but you're definitely right.
Is it the Plant Hotel?
It's the one right across the street called the Alcazar Hotel.
So to paint a picture a little bit, and I've covered this a whole bunch on my podcast, but to give people some context, there was a whole bunch of Henrys that founded Florida. One of the main ones being Henry Flagler, the right-hand man of John D. Rockefeller, and Henry Plant. And the whole conspiracy is that they took over these buildings, but they always come here to the Florida and they build out. I think that they took a lot of the land from the natives. The state was giving them land for every mile of railroad that they were building out. And I believe that they know where the hotspots are or were at that point in time. And they use it to their benefit. So they build these crazy buildings on them. And I didn't know. I just learned now that the Alcazar has this inside of it, dude. You never told me about that.
Well, we didn't get to it yet. It's right across the street. But we covered the Ponce de Leon Hotel right across the courtyard. City Square is the Hotel Alcazar. Now, what you're looking at right here. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes.
What you're looking at right here on the right is the swimming pool of the hotel, right? Swimming pool. Well, you tell me if that looks like a swimming pool to you.
It looks like a flooded first floor.
Exactly.
Dude, it looks like the best swimming pool ever, though, also.
Now, that is fed by the aquifer underneath, believe it or not.
But doesn't it look like the best swimming pool ever, though, at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it does look like fucking sweet swimming pool.
Now,
it does look like a flooded thing, too. Like,
this is in Miami. This is the Vizcaya swimming pool.
Oh,
A swimming pool, right? It's the same deal where this is like the underneath the first story of the house, that glowing turquoise water, that is the Florida spring water. That is the aquifer feeding this man-made Coquina pool. So that Coquina rock is pretty much the same rock. The stones would be made out of the same rock. St. Augustine's made out of same rock. Some of the star forts are made out of. And this is it over the years. This is what it looks like from outside. This is the swimming pool. So it's beneath the first floor or at ground level.
so wait, that wasn't it's not supposed to be a swimming pool?
You tell me.
Well, I mean, it looks like one to me because like there's no like
What
chair,
if
like anything like down there. You know what I'm saying? It's got steps going into it. So yeah, I mean, to me, it looks like a swimming pool, but I'm assuming that you don't think so.
what if in another culture this
Well, I mean,
is how
it could
they
be
got
a-
water?
It could be a swimming pool.
What else would it? What are you?
You could walk up to it and fill your pitcher up and have drinking water anytime you want. If it's under
So-
your house,
It's a well. You think it's a well?
it could be a well. Exactly.
So Vizcaya itself is actually a four-sided star fort.
Whoa.
Can you see that?
Let's zoom
basically-
in on that picture because we're not. I think I need to zoom out. Hold on a second. All right, go ahead. Yeah, now we could see it.
That's a residence, museum, and gardens aerial video.
If you know about bastion forts,
No.
that's four bastions in the corner of a star fort. You can see how the coastline is formed right there into like a perfect semicircle shape.
Yeah.
Now that boat right there is actually made of the same material. It's solid stone.
That's
They
not a-
actually used that boat to disprove global warming and climate change because they have the sea levels marked from 100 years ago,
Now,
and it hasn't changed at all.
you said this is a boat made of stone. Or is this like a statue of a boat? It's not a functioning boat made of stone, is it?
Pretty much. No, it's not a functioning boat.
Okay.
It's like a piece,
yeah,
a built piece.
yeah. It's
That's
architecture.
an island.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a man-made island. That's beautiful. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay, so you're saying that the Star Fort once was there, and now you can sort of just see maybe like outline of it. That the landscape is kind of kept and preserved, and only slightly preserved in the actual building here. This would have been where the red roof is. That's where the center of the Star Fort would have been, right?
Yes.
Okay.
That courtyard in the middle, that'd be a four-sided star fort. This is made of solid Coquina rock, which is essentially the same thing. The pyramids are made out of
Wow.
um,
Now
solid
the
limestone.
the Coquina rock, it's a sedimentary rock that is sorted fragments of shells, mollusks, trilobites, brachiopods, and invertebrates. This is very interesting that they would choose a stone with, living creatures, so to speak. At least they're the exoskeletons of living creatures. Wow.
And Longo, correct me if I'm wrong, but the mound house or cottage that Rockefeller had, is that mound also coquina? Would that be the same material?
Kind of, yes. That's part of what my channel discusses in depth, is what is limestone? Limestone is just crushed up shell that is compacted, crushed up sand, compacted. Now sandstone's kind of something else. This is more chunks of shell, and over thousands of years, millions of years, it gets compacted and it gets wet and dried, wet over and over again until you get solid stone. Now, if that's all limestone is, then if you could cast and crush up shell today and cast it like a cement, Isn't that kind of the exact same thing?
Well, it's funny you say that because I've had 2 or 3 guests on my show suggest that the pyramids were built with geopolymers, and you're saying
Geopolymer.
that you would create.
This is a geopolymer.
Wow.
This is a real life geopolymer.
Wow.
It doesn't expand like some people think geopolymers expanded, like they were like a foam. This is like a real life. It's wet. They cast it. They leave it for a day. Come back.
And now,
these blocks? Sorry to interrupt. These blocks are actual coquina cut out from quarries, allegedly. And this place, I was trying to find an aerial shot of this. Basically, it's the same exact shape as Vizcaya, and these are both mansions owned by millionaires, if not billionaires. And the coquina rock, the limestone, the crushed up shell mounds that the natives made, those are crushed up shell. And when we see them today, our researchers, they mistakenly call them trash piles. Well, those same researchers look at and see all the time what is called Indian tabby, but they can't put 2 and 2 together. Indian tabby is a primitive, ancient native form of cement where they use crushed up shell and some fire. They burn some stuff to make lime, and with lime, you can make cement and concrete.
Right.
And now, using that, they were able to make like these huts and walls of huts and strong structures that last a long time. That's what much of St. Augustine is made of, like the walls and stuff and the pavement on the side of the streets. But coquina is a little different. It's just a little bit more well done. And if you do it very well, if you mix it well, it'll come out as hard as limestone. And sometimes you can't even tell the difference.
So
is this material conductive by any chance? Because we talk about the old world having the red bricks. I know they incorporate red bricks into these buildings as well, that they're able to hold the charge. But does coquina hold any sort of charge, or do you think it's more of like a talismanic purpose, where it's like you're using the earth to build your home? And,
now, the Florida natives worshipped the shell, and Juan, I know you know how they. Some tribes, the Calusa, would worship the deer up on the post in the middle of a circle. Well, a lot of the other tribes would worship a shell, a conch shell, or like one of these old fossil-looking shells. They would worship that in the middle of a ring. And so, there you have your religious significance of shell to these people. But on top of that, is it conductive? I don't think it's electrically conductive in the way that people think. But as far as brick being able to store memory and energy, that is true. That is a fact. It's not a conspiracy theory. You can go look it up. Red brick is partially crystalline. Now, with that remaining true, I would assume that limestone, which is more crystalline than brick, but has a little bit less metal in it, because brick will have like metal in it sometimes, a little bit, maybe even blood. But that this would be as harmonic, would be able to store as much energy information as brick, if not a little more.
Yo, how do we download the motherfucking bricks, son?
Hold on. That's interesting you say the blood part.
Wait, Mark, stop. How do we download these bricks, bro? Like, if there is info, and I fucks with you, and energy stored in red bricks, right? Where do we plug in the USB container at?
In your ass.
How do we get it back out of there? Like, I follow you, right? It's all in there, good to go. How do we get it out of there?
Well, I think when you have your instances of hauntings and ghost stories and visitations, I think that is those memories being unlocked unintentionally, where you'll have women very often who I think are more sensitive to intuition, just to generalize it, will go into these old places and they'll see an old Civil War soldier in a brick building or in an all wood building, right? Wood is also a good building material. And to be fair, pretty much every building material is resonant and good for the soul and good for eternity, except for the ones we're using now, like the cheap drywall and the plywood and the plastic and the concrete that is not resonant at all. The modern concrete, it's almost entirely inorganic.
Bro, what's that Pink Panther shit? You know what I'm talking about?
The insulation. I got a video for you, Chris. This is how you download. This is how you download
asbestos is what you're talking about, Chris.
That shit fucked up mad people, bro.
Well,
look at this. This is how you download the information from the walls, bro.
All right, there we go.
You plug the USB on all these Star Forts have USBs on them, bro. You stick it in your computer.
Dead drop, fool. That's a dead drop for Bitcoin because you did something wrong.
There you go, bro. That's how you do it.
That's for secret agents and shit. So I want to bring it back. You're suggesting the red bricks have blood in them. That's interesting. A lot of the barns that are colored red are painted red because back in the day, the cheapest paint dye would have been blood, right? So you have all these barns and houses
kill
too.
Fucking infidels, dude. Who cares about them? You know,
barns and houses that are covered in blood, could cause some sort of maybe shielding, right? The iron in the blood, it could maybe create sort of like a sort of energy barrier.
It increases the iron in the mix. That it affects the polarity, the magnetic charge of the brick. Some bricks are metallic enough to react to a magnet. And the older brick is stronger and more metallic. If you've ever clanked certain bricks, like landscape bricks, are very dead, so to speak. They have no resonance. You knock like a landscape brick, like a driveway tile, against a rock and it doesn't make a noise. You take one of those old like Boston, Maryland red bricks that feel metallic, very cold to the touch, metallic. You can feel that they have more metal in the mix. It almost feels like a metal. And when you clink these, when you hit them, you can hear that.
I remember when I was a kid, I would smash them together and it would be like an electric charge and like a shard of it would fire off. You like feel like a energy wave like hit your face. It was electric for sure.
It makes a clink like a xylophone.
Yeah.
You can tell the difference.
And I want to add, because what you're talking about is, I know we talked with Analog about it. It's called necrogeomancy, where they in certain buildings in ancient times as well, they would do an offering to the building, either through blood in the mix somewhere or an actual person being buried alive inside. And I've been told not to talk about this on air. So
why is
don't
that?
want to say.
Well, let me say this then. Let me say that.
Who told you not to talk about
who told you that?
Somebody who's gotten their channel taken down because they started talking exactly.
Okay, well, let me tell you this. There's a guy that lives in Thailand. It's my channel, so I'll take the risk. There's a guy that I had on the show who lives in Thailand. He wrote a book called Occult Thailand, and he told me that every town in Thailand has a center structure at the center of the town, and they consecrate this structure with the soul of a deceased person. And in the old days, they would literally kill the person when the building was finished and bury them underneath it. Nowadays, we're told they just sort of, dedicate it to someone who was like an important figure in the community who recently passed. But yeah, there's a history of this throughout many different cultures, not just Thailand. And I want to say on the point of the mounds and the shells, you talked about the tabby, the Indian tabby. I'd never heard of that before, but it's very interesting. I learned about these shell middens, and you're right, the archaeologists call them like trash piles and refuge piles.
Always.
Clearly, they were structures of some kind that had a purpose, even if it was just a sort of material pile, a resource, even if it was just that, which it seems that would probably be maybe less the case than maybe they were building structures out of it. But it's crazy how they talk all about the mounds, but they neglect any sort of stone structures or even man-made geopolymers. And then the Romans too had this like very hard cement, and they were said to have taken journeys across the ocean to the New World. So who knows? Maybe they learned that while traveling over to the Great Lakes, where all that copper went missing.
Dude, also Portland cement. The reason why I was asking you the question about the British Isles earlier, because I live in Portland, and that's in one of the isles down there. Well, not in the isle, but it's southern part of England, where they have a cement named after it. So that's why. That was like literally the whole setup for that.
Can you guys see this? So, all these points that are plotted out are middens.
Wow.
Shell mounds, trash mounds. For the most part, the big ones. Now, this also brings us to another thing that Florida, I know we wanted to talk about some astrology tonight. Florida is ruled by the constellation, the zodiac sign, Pisces.
Okay.
Pisces, the fish.
That is so interesting. I don't mean to interject, but have you ever thought of how Michigan and Florida are sort of like parallel peninsulas? I don't know, Pisces, dual, just saying.
Two fish.
Yeah.
Sure. But in ancient times, Florida was associated with Pisces. When you go to Giza, everything is orientated to Orion's belt in Sirius. Okay? In Florida, almost all the sites are arranged to the constellation Pisces, and the one next to it, Cetus, but Pisces. And that's in ancient times, at least 2,000 years ago, if not more. I'd say a fuck ton more. But what you have is all those shell middens. This is the thing. They're not allowed to say pyramid. You are not allowed to say pyramid in America. They refuse to do it. Okay, the biggest pyramid in the world is in America, but they call it a mound. So it's not technically a pyramid. It's ridiculous.
Right.
Florida is littered with these mounds. And I'm going to show you that they are pyramids. But this is what we're looking at. Those are the stars of Pisces overlaid onto these mound sites across Florida. Here we have the same thing zoomed in on a different site. So now this is like the microcosm zoomed in on a smaller site. That site itself, the mounds in that site are in imitation of Pisces. Here's another one. This is the Fish Hook constellation, complex near Jacksonville. So these are all different. These are all different instances. Now this one, same deal. Tomoka Mounds. But one of them has something that I want to read.
And Narco, off the top of your head, are any of these constellations by any chance related to stargates or portals by any chance?
I don't know what you mean by that, but
like, do they? Because you know how they say, I think it's the first and last constellation. They relate them to some sort of portal. If I don't know if it's for the soul, for the ascension process, or what. But anything, I'm just trying to link.
Well, sure, yes. Pisces, it does tie into the whole Fountain of Youth. You're absolutely right. Because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac, and it actually represents the elders being the last stage of the life before death.
One of the last states too to get.
Exactly. Florida is the last state admitted to the Union, the last sign of the zodiac. Well, I was just telling you that 2,000 years ago, Florida was associated with Pisces. Well, what if I tell you that today, Florida is also associated with Pisces? If I go look in my astrological rulership book, it tells you Florida is ruled by Pisces. Now, how do they get that? They're using Florida as the state because it was founded in March 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. So they use that as the state's birthday and calculate a zodiac chart.
Right.
This is not like magic made up stuff. Every Fortune 500 company you can think of has had this done for them.
Oh yeah.
So you do it for Florida. And basically, Florida, in ancient times, with the mounds, they were telling us it's ruled by Pisces. Just like they tell us Egypt, ruled by Orion, ruled by Sirius. Now, today, using the birthday, you get Pisces. Florida is a Pisces. Okay? Now let's take it a step further. You have 3 cities in Florida that are named after planets. And if you know your astrology, Pisces is ruled by 3 planets. In Florida, and this is no coincidence, you won't find this in any other state where it lines up like this. Pisces is ruled by Jupiter, Neptune, and Venus. Venus exalts in Pisces. You have Jupiter, Florida, Neptune Beach, and Venus, Florida. The only people who would have known that would have been astrologers. Well, Flagler knew a little bit of astrology. All you have to do is go to his mansion. He tells you that on the ceiling. All you have to do is go to Bach Tower. Look at the side of the tower. He tells you that. These people were astrologers.
I want to add too that Florida was founded statehood March 3rd of 1845, 33. So March is the 3rd month, the 3rd day.
3-3.
Illuminati confirmed.
Right.
That Illuminati confirmed by.
Pisces is the 12th sign of the zodiac. 1 + 2 is 3 as well.
NASA's on the 33rd parallel.
Wow.
Yeah,
But yes, so you've got all this stuff converging in Florida.
Yeah.
Juan likes to talk about Aleister Crowley a lot. Aleister Crowley came down to Florida. He stayed in Palm Beach once.
In Titusville too. He had family in Titusville.
That too. Two of his disciples, Parsons and who is the other one that he was fighting? Yeah.
Mathers?
No, not there. This
Fighting?
was like after Crowley had died.
Oh,
Basically, Parsons. Oh, I think it was Parsons and one of the founders of
the OTO.
Something. It was Parsons and one of Crowley's other students. They were actually in South Florida, and they got into like a magical battle.
Hillary Clinton
with boats, like they were on boats, like
L. Ron Hubbard. You're talking about when they
Ron.
stole his boat, yeah.
But yeah. Okay, there we go. Yeah,
Founder of
It's our guy, bro.
Scientology.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was him. I wasn't sure if it was the founder, but yeah, I guess it was.
Yeah.
Okay.
But Jack Parsons, right? That's his name.
Jack Parsons.
He's the guy that he was doing what rocket propulsion,
JPL Labs. Yep.
technology,
Yep.
all this stuff. So, they came down to Florida to duke it out, I guess. But
Narco, let's bring it to a verging point. So we have the astrology, we have the old buildings. Where do we meet with everything? Where are we going? Are the lizard people here? Yes, no. What are your thoughts? So we can leave the audience with something, the crescendo. This is what it means.
Well, Epstein, maybe he's a lizard. He was down here off the coast of Florida. Bill Gates just moved to Florida for good. I think declared Florida his primary residence. Palm Beach, actually. I'm sad to say. Trump is here. To be blunt, DeSantis is really leading the way as far as freedom goes. So Florida is making some type of stand politically. But when I speak to all these people that come here, they say that they're coming here for spiritual reasons. They say that they're being drawn here. And in a lot of these instances, it's almost not a rational thought. They leave their whole life and they just move here. And they don't know why. They don't know where they're headed. And I think right now, Florida is the new Atlantis. There is a center of consciousness here. The people are just more woke in general, dare I say. The people that are moving here are pretty much truthers because they're leaving political persecution, and if not spiritual persecution. So I think all this information is coming out right now. The hurricane just came through, brought a lot of attention back to the Tampa Bay area. Hurricanes come every year, so that's not really significant. But to tie it all in, I think Florida is special. I think it is the Garden of Eden. I think it is Atlantis, if there was a single one. And we've got the stones to prove it. We've got the pictures to prove it, the accounts. And when you start diving into linguistics, we were talking about the Greek a little bit. In Florida, we have the Creek natives. They're not called Creek in Florida. They're called Seminoles. And these are just...
Can we stop right? Can I interrupt real quick?
Sure.
Florida is Atlantis, or it was, right? That's what you're saying?
Yep.
No. Okay. No. So now, is there like evidence, like in the geological, like is there specific buildings that we're referencing or anything like that? Like besides the hotels and like I've seen, like that's dope. Like I fuck with that. But is there anything in particular, like it's a couple structures, right? But is there anything? Because you hear people talk about it like, oh, we have these concentric circular ring areas in Africa, or some people say maybe it was Sicily, or you know what I mean? It could have been a number of things, right? So is there anything in particular that you're alluding to?
We do live in concentric rings. I'll start there. The concentric rings thing, it's definitely allegorical. You could say that the chakras are 7 concentric rings. You could say that that the North Pole, coming from the North Pole, the Earth is segmented today as we speak.
The flat Earth?
Both models. Both models are use the tropic system, where you have rings that extend from the North Pole outward to the equator, and those are ringlands. If you follow the Bach saga at all, the model of the Earth and civilization is a various ringlands. So the Arctic circles are ringland, the equators are ringland, the tropics, you get it. Now, as for evidence of Atlantis, I assert that Florida has the most evidence of Atlantis of any true place in the world today. Now, if your qualifications for Atlantis are a naval sea power that was lost to history, if not submerged entirely, well, Florida and the Caribbean fit that, and the Gulf of Mexico especially. Now, as far as evidence, those anchors I just showed you are the largest stone anchors in the world as of yet. There's 2,000 of them just in the Pinellas and Pasco County area along the west coast of Florida near Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay is itself a perfect natural port. So the Gulf of Mexico is a crystal sea that is perfectly flat. You will never have big waves in the Gulf of Mexico for the most part. It stays very, very flat. And that's because Florida is a breakwater. So if you've ever seen a bay, there's a breakwater that's built. And basically, this inland bay, this crystal sea, as Plato calls it, would be protected. So these people could come back to their bay in safety. And within that bay, there is an even more protected bay, and that is Tampa. Now, you have all the stone anchors. Well, those stone anchors would have needed big ships, right? Well, the stone ark in Mount Ararat the stone anchor belonged to an ark. That ark was made of gopher wood in the Old Testament. In Florida, we have gopher wood.
Really?
That gopher wood, it only grows in Florida and in little pockets, one of them being the Biltmore Estate in Asheville, which is unusual. They planted it there on purpose. It grows naturally in Florida in the Apalachicola River area.
But you should have started with
Now,
that.
it grows
bro.
nowhere in the old world at all.
No,
Wow.
Florida, along the Apalachicola River. It's one of the
Now,
lightest woods in the
would
world.
that be because when the settlers, European settlers came here, they found that tree and named it the gopher tree, or is it because, like, how would it be
I'll
written in
tell
the
you
Bible if they
I'll-
weren't in Florida?
I'll tell you the distinction.
Okay.
In the Old Testament, it's Hebrew, and
Okay.
it's gopher wood with a K.
Okay.
Gopher.
Okay.
Here in Florida, the gopher wood goes about as back as Florida itself goes. They were calling it gopher wood.
Okay.
Now, can I point to exactly where that name originated? I cannot.
Yeah.
But I can tell you with all of the other linguistic crossovers between the Caribbean and the Mediterranean,
Mm.
I know where I stand. I'm comfortable
Yeah.
standing on the side of Atlantis. You have Pompano, Florida, Pompeii. You have the Creek. Those are the Greek. You have the Seminoles. Those are Semitic. You have New Smyrna, Florida. Well, Smyrna is Greece.
Right.
You have all of these cities, all of these names. Venice. You have multiple Venices in Florida. Venice is Phoenicia.
Right.
This is the ancient sea power of the Mediterranean. And when the Ringling brothers built their mansion here, they named it in Phoenician, Venetian. Very odd language to choose, considering none of them spoke it, and they were German. So why did they choose Venetian to name their little neighborhood?
Right.
Well, it's because they knew who was here before them. And if you check out our episode with Analog that we did, he has the old articles to prove this as well, that the ancient Native American languages come from the Greek. And that is why the Creek natives are the Greek. They are also called the Muscogee. The Muskogee. The Muskogee in Florida are the Muscovy in Russia. That is why you have a St. Petersburg, Florida, which is in Tampa Bay, the Garden of Eden, and you have a St. Petersburg in Russia,
right,
which is very, very close to the Gulf of Finland. You have the Gulf of Florida and the Gulf of Finland, and the Gulf Stream, which is that warm water that keeps the world alive during the resets, it oozes from the ground in the Gulf of Mexico, and then travels intelligently. This stream of water stays like a snake and goes all the way thousands and thousands of miles into the Gulf of Finland. So it goes down past England, up, down around Denmark, and into the Gulf of Finland.
Now, what do you mean by that intelligently? Because that's incredible. It sounds like there's a sort of oceanic highway between the old world and the new world that's possibly been there for thousands of years.
That's what it is. And for a fact, that is what the Vikings took when they crossed to America. This is what anybody would have taken if they were crossing.
But intelligently would imply God.
Yes, God, for sure.
Okay.
It's
what
going.
That we're getting at.
This water goes from the Gulf of Mexico, which I believe to be the belly button of the earth. The navel. This is where the word navel originates from. Because Florida, if the North Pole of the earth is the crown of the head, the crown chakra, Florida would be the belly button of the earth. And this is called the navel. And the navel is the same word as naval, like a warship, a fleet, a naval maritime fleet. And Florida fits both of those because it is the most fertile place, one of the most fertile places in the world. And you have a rich history of maritime boats being used. Florida has the most canoes in the world being pulled up. Some of them are preserved for 5,000 years. and they just float up out of the mud, and they're still preserved.
Now,
That happens all the time.
where do the Maya and the Aztec fit into this for you? Because I've heard from other researchers that they considered this like the northern reaches of their empire. They would travel to Florida frequently and
Absolutely.
had full domain
So-
over the Gulf of Mexico.
The Maya absolutely, absolutely went from the Yucatan to Florida, because we are told that the Maya were confined to the Yucatan. The Aztec had this big, sorry, my cat, had this big, territory. The Inca had this big territory. The Maya had such a small amount of territory, according to the mainstream. That's not what I believe. I know for a fact Miami is named for the Maya. The Miami tribe, there is a Miami tribe. It's not pronounced like that. The Miami, I don't know how you pronounce it, are from the Okeechobee region. And there are a little bit pockets around Florida.
And that's why there's a Miami, Ohio as well, right? And there's a town.
But no. We're told officially there's no relation between those two.
Interesting. Okay.
Officially, there's no relation between that Ohio and the Miami down in Miami.
Do you believe otherwise?
Of course,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
This is the Hopewell
Right.
culture was very similar, if not the same, as the Maya.
Right.
In the Miami, you have the Yucatan coming up from it. The Yucatan is like that little toe on Mexico, poking up into the Gulf. Florida is coming down like this. They're almost reaching out to each other. You could probably sail a big canoe across if you really, really had to. So if you had a ship, you could make this easy. Now they would make this journey. And as I was saying before with the anchors, I'm not saying those people were using these giant stone anchors. The giant stone anchors might be giants using them. The people I'm talking about would be intermediary between the two. Basically, you also have these burials out in the Gulf of Mexico that are like 500 feet offshore, which means the sea levels had to have dropped in order for them to have been buried above ground, because they're burials. And those bodies are Eurasian. Now, one of the researchers on camera calls them European. Okay, and he pretty much got shut down for saying that. But he looked at their DNA because they were so well preserved. These are the bog bodies of Florida. And he found that they still had brains inside. So he tested them, and they had the same DNA as modern Europeans. So, yes, and they had strawberry orange hair.
How old are they supposed to be?
7,000 years old.
And they have modern DNA of.
And they all right. they can.
So
all
DNA
they can,
hasn't changed in 7,000 years.
Well, you could make that's a good point. The distinction is that these are like the original Atlanteans who may have given much of their genes to Europe, but they also gave their genes to every person on the planet that can grow a beard.
Wow.
So
motherfuckers.
The original races.
That's us.
Only the European Arctic race could grow beards. And you can see this because sub-Saharan Africans cannot grow beards. Native, like Guatemalans, cannot grow beards. Native Americans cannot. Have you ever seen a Native American with a beard?
No.
They try.
Nope. And that is because bearded genes were given to the world in different allotments by the Atlanteans. This is a fact. The Sea People, the Phoenicians being their closest descendants, all had beards. This is why the pharaohs always had their braided beards. Basically, they had the coned hats and the coned beards, right? And these were the Phoenicians. Well, when you look at ancient Finnish statues, yeah, it's the same exact person, from ancient Finnish Viking statues to Phoenicians. Well, who are the only two people of antiquity, of the ancient world, who could traverse the open seas at night too? The Phoenicians and the Vikings.
Right.
Now, I'm here to tell you, those are the same people. And we've been given a Roman history, and those are Rome's two biggest enemies. Who sacked Rome? Who were the only, I don't know that for sure. Who were the two most famous people to sack Rome?
Genghis Khan did.
The Phoenicians, the Carthaginians, and
The Mongolians.
the Vikings, the barbarians, who took over Rome and established a new emperor, if I'm not mistaken. The barbarians are Viking. Now, what does barbarian mean? Barbarian means bearded one. Barber, you go to a barber, don't you?
Illuminati confirmed.
We cracked it. That's it, boys. We cracked it.
For people who know Robert Sepper, he talks about this, how Berber is what we call the people in North Africa. Well, that is a Phoenician colony. Those are barbarians. So when the Romans fought them, or the descendants of the Romans, much of the Western world, when they fought the North Africans, they called them Berbers or barbers, because that's not what they call themselves. The Amazigh people call themselves Amazigh. We call them Berbers.
That's like West Indian. Sorry.
Now, north of Rome, the Vikings, what we would call Vikings, they call them barbarians. So what does that tell you? If you have the Vikings in the north having beards, all being bearded and being called barbarians, then you have the Phoenician colonies in North Africa being called barbarians. Barbarian doesn't mean a group of people. Barbarian means bearded. And we know that for a fact. Barber means beard in Spanish. Barbados, those islands, barber means beard. In North African, Spanish, a couple different languages. So these bearded people gave their bearded genes to the people that they visited. And you can follow the beards. I like to say that a lot. Follow the beards. The people who brought beards into Japan were the Ainu. Well, the Ainu considered themselves Aryan, just like the Iranian did, just like the Irish did, just like the Indian did, the Sanskrit people. They all consider themselves Aryan. Well, who are the Aryans in Eurasia? They are the Scythians, essentially, the ancestors of the Scythians. The Scythians are these horse people, on average, about 6'6" That's pretty tall, right, Mark? That's pretty tall. Now, all these mummies buried across Asia are about 6'6" tall. The mummies buried in Peru are about 6'6". The Vikings were about 6, maybe 6.5 feet. Definitely over 6, like they are today. The women are on average 6 feet in some of these countries. Now, what does that tell you? Well, remember I just said these barbarians call themselves Amazigh in North Africa. Well, that reminds you of the Amazonians, right? The Amazonians come from this legend where the Greeks, when the Scythians, who were these mounted archer people, when they would be traveling, the men would go out on these war parties. Sounds like Native Americans, right? They would go out on these war parties, or maybe they were doing good stuff. Maybe they were helping people somewhere away, right? But they would leave the women behind in their little temporary settlements. And the women were very tall. we're told, we know from their bones, about 6 feet. The women were 6 foot, the men were on average 6'6". Now these guys were going around the Asian steppe riding their horses. And these people brought agriculture and civilization to the different corners of Eurasia. Now, when these people went on their expeditions, they would leave the women behind. Now, the Greeks, as glorious as we think them, were only had the balls to go fight the Scythians when their women were left at home and the men were out. But guess what? The women would repel the Greeks more often than not. Those are tall women that are capable of fighting men. Who else does that remind you of in history?
Greek women are tall?
Scythians.
Reminds you of the Amazonian women, right?
Yeah,
Is that
the stereotype.
That is where the legend of the Amazonian women come
and
from.
this is why when the Spaniards went to, and whoever else, Europeans went to South America, they called the rainforest the Amazon rainforest.
Yeah, they met people like the Patagonians. The Patagonians are factually had about 6'6" average.
Well, that word even means land of the giants. Patagonia literally
Right.
means land
Now
of the giants.
those aren't the big giants. The big giants were even older than that they saw from far away on their ships. They said that there was a race of giants.
Right.
Now these people might have just been the children of those giants,
Okay.
and they were still pretty dang big. But the Scythians, who have this, and where do we find cowboy cultures around the world? You find it in the Eurasian steppe. You find it in like the Andes Mountains, like the Gaucho cowboys, right?
Southwest
And you
United
find it,
States.
and you find it in the Native Americans.
Right.
And Native Americans are the Hun. They're the Hun. They are the Genghis Khan Mongolian horde.
That was what I was thinking of earlier before you mentioned with the beard comment. There's a lot of Asian cultures where men, can only grow mustaches and very tiny beards. They don't have like the full beards like other groups do.
Well, like I was saying, the Ainu brought beards into Japan, and the Ainu is the same root word as Anunnaki. These are the rulers who come from elsewhere, and they weren't necessarily reptilian. Anu has the same root as Inuit too, and there's a lot of Finnish people that actually live in Alaska, because back before we split up all the countries like we do today, Finnish people lived in a ring around the North Pole. So these Eskimos still today speak Finnish. But why are Eskimos, for lack of a better word, Asian looking? Right. They have the squinty eyes. Why is that? Well, we're told that Native Americans are Asiatic, right? Native Americans, the ones that we commonly think of, like Plains Indians. Why are they Asiatic? Well, they are Asiatic. We're told they go from the Bering Strait, right? Well, what if the Bering Strait was not a couple of people with baskets crossing and resettling somewhere? What if it was a complete horde of horsemen that used bows on horses? And that is where you get this Native American horseman culture, because we're told that Europeans introduced the horse to America. Now, there's a lot of people who would challenge that. Just like they say they introduced the camel to Australia. Well, there's evidence of camels being in Australia before that. Wow. Today, Australia has the most camels in the world.
Wow.
Well, and all it takes is for them to take a photo of them stealing camels from Australia and be like, yeah, here, look at here, we're shipping camels to Australia, first time ever. It's like they just need to take a picture. There was no, but yeah, that's incredible. I I had never heard that, but I have heard about the wild Indian horses that are said to be, you know, sort of native to certain parts of the Rocky Mountains and the Dakotas. But we're kind of coming down to the last few minutes here. Dr. Longo, man, this has been incredible stuff. I really appreciate you sharing all this with us, and I'd like to invite you to join me on my show, and you yourself and Juan to join me on my other show, Esoteric America, to talk about Florida. But you know, this has been fun, man. This has been a great conversation. I appreciate you sharing everything. Is there one place where people can go? Old World Florida on YouTube. Is there anywhere else people can go to support you?
Old World Florida on Instagram.
Okay.
Old_world_Florida.
Right
and
on.
that's it.
Right on. So
You got
Instagram,
you want to plug the YouTube channel, bro? Or no?
YouTube, Instagram. No, I just did.
Which one? You mean Kakina Cowboys?
Yeah.
Sure. Go check out Kakina Cowboys. I guess it's on Patreon primarily, and I release it on my channel. We both do, I guess, a week after the fact.
Mhm.
So if you want to see it up front, you know, you gotta pay it. So
That's right.
I love
And
that.
follow Old World Florida for the truth about Tartaria, or the Tartarian truth, if you will, and the real history that's been occulted from us. This was fascinating, bro. Really appreciate you coming on.
Thanks,
This was a lot
man.
of fun.
Nice meeting you guys.
Likewise.
Thanks for having me.
Likewise. Yeah, this has been another wild episode of Illuminati Confirmed, getting to know the roots of this strange America that we find ourselves in. Chris, any final thoughts before we wrap up?
I feel like this guy came into focus the last 8 seconds.
I think that's just you sobering up. Anyways, let's
Nah, bro, stop with that. Like, yo, the last couple things you said were just so short and concise. Like sometimes I need that, you know? So it's like interesting when it's like you can boom, put it like that and then give me the thing backward. Like sometimes I like the thing backwards, like give me the thesis up front and then you give me all the supporting facts. But I feel like sometimes we go through all the supporting facts to get to the thesis. And it's like, I feel like what you said is probably it's got a lot of merit. Obviously, there's a lot of factors that line up. Duh. But also like, sometimes I feel like I need that up front instead of like have to work my whole way through it.
Well, Chris, I would advise you to go and learn more on his excellent YouTube channel. There's a bunch of concise videos. I'll say I specifically want to talk to you about Mr. Frank Lloyd Wright, because you did a video on him, and I recently learned a lot about his strange murder ritual house that he had up in Wisconsin. So we'll talk about that on a future episode. Thank you, everybody in the live chat. Thank you, everybody listening on Juan's podcast, my podcast, and, of course, the Mensa podcast. Till next time, folks, you've been confirmed.
Illuminati confirmed.
Bye.
All right. Thanks, Juan. Thanks,
All right.
Chris.